The Iron Game Chalk Talk podcast is brought to you by the following sponsors: EliteForm.com, IgnitionAPG.com, PlayUSA at PLAEUSA.com, and Sorinex Exercise Equipment at Sorinex.com. And now, the Iron Game Chalk Talk podcast. Welcome to Iron Game Chalk Talk with your host, Ron McKeefery.
Every time our athletes walk into this weight room, they're going to be pushed to the max.
Let's go! Everything you got!
On this podcast, hear Coach McKeefery straight talk about training, featuring the top strength and conditioning professionals from around the world. And now, here's your host, Ron McKeefery.
Hey guys, welcome back to Iron Game Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Ron McKeefery, and this is episode number 173. Real excited to have a good buddy of mine on the show today, Aaron Ausmus. Aaron and I have basically grown up in this profession together. Got in at about the same time, have pushed through the ups and the downs and the whole deal in this profession. And a guy that I just, I've leaned on in lots of different ways through the years and really respect for the way that he goes about his business, the way that he does his job, and the legacy that he has laid pretty much everywhere he's ever been. And so I wanted to have him on the show. We talked quite a bit about, we both have gone through, having the best jobs out there, getting, we've both gone through being fired. And we get into that a little bit, how best to be prepared for being fired, talk about branding. If you're not following him on Pen and Paper Strength app, on Instagram, Facebook or Twitter, you should definitely be doing that. He's created a great brand with this, and it's a good mix between really solid training programs with some humor and some motivation and some things along those lines. And so I'd definitely check that out. Follow them if you're not doing that. But he's with Sorinex now. As you guys know, Sorinex is a sponsor of the show, and a company that I have an affinity for and just really believe in the way that they do their business. And it's no shock to me that Aaron has found them as an employer, and it's a great combination of people all coming together for a common purpose. And they have their Summer Strong summit or clinic that they have each year. Should definitely check that out if you have not gone. I've gone the last 2 years, and it is a great experience. They got their center mass bells out that are some fantastic things. Those are on the Christmas list this year for me. But I've got a chance to play with them quite a bit, and just a very innovative company, and ran by great people. And so definitely check Sorinex.com out if you haven't done so. Follow them on their social media as well. But really want to bring this episode to you with Aaron. It's one of the longest ones that we've shot, but just tons of great nuggets in there for you to walk away from. So sit back and enjoy, and we'll see you on the other side. All right, guys, the guy you're looking at, good friend of mine, Aaron Ausmus. We are part of a rather large fraternity of coaches that have been fired by the University of Tennessee. So we have a special bond, and just been a good friend. We've been in the business about the same length of time, and just a guy that I've gone to in a lot of ways over the years. And so, man, I appreciate you coming on the show, brother.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's I feel like it's been a long time coming. I know we've talked several times. Yeah, let's get on. It feels like that's been 2 or 3 years now.
That's the way it goes in our world, man. That's the way it goes.
Well,
hey, buddy. We go back long ways, but I want everybody to kind of just get Reader's Digest version of your journey. I mean, go back, how you got into the field of strength and conditioning as a thrower at Tennessee to, being the head strength coach at USC, and then to your current role there at Sorinex.
Yeah, it's been a great journey. The experiences have been unbelievable. Every stage is a growing stage. Was a thrower at Tennessee. I walked on. Earned a scholarship after my second year. By the fourth year, I was a couple-time All-American, NCAA champion in the shot, so that was starting to get some recognition, kind of, I guess, in the athletic world, especially like at Tennessee. And I'm starting to get recognized a lot by the strength staff at Tennessee, which was Coach Stuckey, Tommy Moffitt, Johnny Long, and those guys. And by the time I was a senior and finishing up, I just remember one day I was just training and Coach Stuckey came up and said, "Hey, I'm going up to administration. I'm trying to get a third GA, and I'm only going to ask for it if you'll accept it." And I'm like, "Whoa," and I'm like, "I've never even coached before." He's like, "Don't worry about it. It'll all come around. Just say yes." So I was like, "Well, can I go home and call my parents and just kind of give them what's going on?" He's like, "Yeah, sure." So I went home, and of course, this is before cell phones and things like that. So you had to actually call and talk on a landline and get and then walk back over to the complex and say, "Hey, I'm in." So that was 1998. I started officially my role in August of that year, which was a really good for Tennessee. So jumped right in. 2 years as GA, got my master's there at Tennessee. Chris Carlisle had came on my last year as a track athlete. He replaced Moffitt, so I got to know Chris and his program, and he worked with us as throwers in the track team. And then he got the job at USC with Pete Carroll. Interviewed and felt good about it, came back and said, "I think I interviewed well, and if so, I want to hire you as my top assistant." And things just started rolling, and moved out to USC 2001, January of 2001 with Chris. And just started a program, left a program that was just rolling with Tennessee football at that time. Some of probably the best years was 97, 98, 99, 2000. Left the program and then had to go build a program. And that was really good for me as a young strength coach, because my first year in, we won a national championship, and I just thought you just join the staff, you win a championship, and you do it. And
that easy.
As a naive, young coach, I really did think that. I mean, Coach Stuckey came in after we won that, and he said, "Guys, I've been coaching 27 odd years or whatever," and said, "This is my first national championship, and here I'm sitting as GAs with me and Eric Ciano and Dan Eason, and we're 23, 24, maybe 25 years old, and we're just like, yeah, no big deal. This is what you do, you win, and
right.
It took the going and starting a new program with a new coach and a new staff, and going 6-6 your first season with a new program to kind of learn, wow, what we just left was really, really, really special, and you didn't know how special it was. So now I saw the hard work that Coach Stuckey, Johnny Long, Tommy Moffitt, because Tommy Moffitt, if you think about it, he coached us as throwers, but he left Tennessee in 98. They won a championship that year.
Right.
He go to Miami. He spent 2 years at Miami. He leaves to go to LSU. Well, Miami that year wins the national championship. So he's 1 year leaving two programs that just wins the national championship. So, he finally, obviously has made up for it at LSU with a couple. So, but, to think about the impact that those guys had on those programs, I didn't appreciate it until I left and when I went to a place like SC and had to start a program with Coach Carlisle. So, it was a great 3.5 years at SC and got to be around, Pete Carroll, and his charisma was unbelievable, and things I took from him and stuff was this stuff I'll probably tell my grandkids about and share how he coached and things. It was unbelievable experience. So by the time our third year at SC, we just had two really successful seasons in 2002. We were 11-2. 2003, I think we were 12-1, and I was itching to be a head strength coach, and something that I didn't have was head strength coaching experience. So one of our linebackers coach got the head job at Idaho in 2004, and he offered me the job. So of course, I had already applied to a couple jobs that I was trying to get, and I wasn't even getting a sniff. And then I think a lot of it was that experience, the lack of experience.
Right.
So I looked at this opportunity, and Coach Carlisle, he was doing his best to talk me out of it. He was like, "No, don't go there, and all this stuff." So of course I'm looking at it as like, this is what I need to do. So went on to Idaho, spent a season up there. Again, great experiences, because you learn those those things being a head strength coach, the mistakes, the staff development things and all that. You just have to do those things to kind of learn it. So I was there quick. I was there basically 10 months. Ed Ogeron got the job at Ole Miss, offered me the job to come to Ole Miss as the head football strength coach, which was a no-brainer. It brought me back somewhere in the South, SEC school, obviously, and had a long relationship with Coach Ogeron while working at USC. Really liked his style, so left to go there in 2005 and spent 3 seasons there. Got to work alongside like Noel Durkee, who was my strength coach at Tennessee. He was a grad assistant, and we kind of passed the baton in '98. He left to go to BYU for his first assistant job, and I was kind of taking on the new roles of GA. So Noel coached me at Tennessee, and then we got to work together 3 seasons at Ole Miss, which was awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
And after 3 very mediocre to, I would say, not so well seasons, we all got fired and at Ole Miss, and new coach comes in, brings his new strength coach. You're out of a job, obviously you know how that works.
Oh yeah.
And, so it was a good year to kind of figure out. So we're now to 1998. I had an interview at a place to go for a job, didn't get the job, and I decided to kind of sit that year, see what plays out. Well, it ended up being a full year, and it was a good year learning for me of going around and kind of figuring out what I want to do and how I want to develop maybe a philosophy and things, because I think so far I had some nice championships and rings on my resume that were taking me places, and I hadn't dug down deep yet into me and my philosophy as a coach, and really built one as a coaching style. So 2008 was probably a big growing year for me, just to accept your first firing, figuring out what happened and why, maybe how to grow from it. So I jumped back in the game 2009 at North Texas, another brief stop. I went and interviewed for that job with a staff that I didn't know. And so I wasn't the inside guy that they knew who they wanted to hire. They just need to formally interview some people.
Right.
So we went in. There's 3 or 4 candidates, and we all interviewed. And I think we all were just kind of outside candidates. And I think that year of really finding some things really pushed me to the top of that process. I think the interview went really well. I got offered the job and went to North Texas. And it wasn't there very long. I don't know, 3 or 4 months by the time I got there, and the big orange calls. 2009 Tennessee. Lane Kiffin had been there. They had recently just hired Mark Smith from South Carolina. Don't know what really was going on, but they wanted to make a change, and brought me in June of 2009. So kind of jumped in right in the probably 2nd, 3rd week of summer training. Didn't have a lot of time to have those meetings with the team and talk about how we do things and
right.
that, because we just didn't have time to waste. We had to get going. We had to get ready for the season. So we kind of just jumped in. It's like, guys, hey, I'm a former Vol, and I'd love to sit down and talk about why I do everything, but I don't think we have time. And let's just trust me and roll. And and we took off with it, and we had a pretty good season there. We went to a bowl game, and of course there's a whole new coaching staff from the Philip Fulmer era, so everything was so new.
Right.
Fulmer had been there so long, and the way things were done were pretty set in stone, and obviously did very well. So
sure.
Here we are with a new staff and doing different things. So it was a pretty big adjustment year. I think not so much for us, but just the Tennessee program. It was different. So we finished the season, and Lane gets the offer to go to USC, and he goes. And I'm sitting here saying, wow, I just got back. I just done a full gauntlet around the country to come back to a place like this, which was my alma mater, where I grew up. And it was an awesome opportunity to be back. And, and here Lane goes for his dream job, which was USC. And obviously, Chris Carlisle leaves to go to Seattle with Pete. Now Lane has an opening in the strength department, reaches out to me. And at about the same time, I don't know, we're talking 2 or 3 days, maybe a week in difference, Derek Dooley was hired. I was trying to figure out where I stood maybe with him. Obviously, he wanted to bring in his staff and his strength coach, which, again, we all know how it works.
Right.
And it was the best thing for me to go out there back to USC with Lane. So it was like a bittersweet opportunity. I was kind of a little bit disappointed to leave Tennessee, but I knew I was going to a great place. So because I've been there before. So that finished up at USC 2010. We spent 4 seasons there. The last season was, probably the best season of my life. We go into, we lose our head coach after the 5th game. I think we're 3-2. They hire up Ed as the interim, Ed Ogeron. We roll the thing out and go 8-2 the rest of the way. Finish, I think, I don't remember what the season, I think it was 10-4. I think we finished with the bowl game 10-4 because we had an extra game with Hawaii that year.
Yeah.
And, we're kind of with our fingers crossed hoping Ed gets this job because I think I had a relationship with Ed, obviously, at Ole Miss. I was probably going to retain my job as a strength coach. And, he didn't get it. And we were pretty devastated. And they bring in Steve Sarkisian. And here goes the same old song and dance. He brings his people, and you're out of a job. So
right.
That's kind of what got me to this situation here, wearing the shirt I'm wearing now with Sorinex, and it was another year of growth in 2014, being out of a job. Very, very fortunate to have a contract that protected you for a while.
Right.
And it allows you, I think, to, as hard as it is, to relax and just trust the process. You still, you're itching because you just don't have you're not employed, even though you have financial income coming in, which is great. But this is just another good year to, again, grow and kind of figure out some opportunities. And so this is where I'm at now.
That's awesome. There's tons of things to pull out there. I think a lot of people, when they, when I've talked to them or shared my story, they always talk about all the stops and all the different places. And obviously, we talked on the front end. I was like, yeah, Aaron, keep this to a Reader's Digest version, and it's still long. It's still long, because it's such a long, storied kind of journey through this profession. And you talk about, you go back to your first firing, and then it's not if, it's when, and oftentimes it's multiple, and it's such a tough profession. I think there's lots of things I want to dig out. One being, you mentioned Tommy Moffitt, you mentioned Chris Carlisle, you mentioned John Stuckey and Johnny Long, and some of these guys. How important has it been to have mentors throughout your career?
I think it's been awesome to have that for me. I look back and I don't think you appreciate it until you get a little older.
Yep.
And things like that. And I was working under Coach Stuckey as a GA, and I remember people just seeing me, shaking my hand and going, "Man, I can't believe you work under Coach Stuckey." And at the time, again, being a young 20-something-year-old, you just didn't get it.
Right.
You just were like, "Hey, man, I'm a GA. I coach. We coach the guys. We set up. We break down. We do body weights." You really didn't see or appreciate kind of what you were working under and the type of program and the type of man and the type of legacy that he's already done. So obviously, I started realizing that as I was starting to move and get jobs, because you having that on your resume, you get around a football staff, there was always at least a guy or several guys that that circled the John Stuckey time. And they're like, hey, he's a John Stuckey guy. Like, look, I mean, that says enough for us. Let's really entertain this guy for a job, because I've been around the guys under John Stuckey, and you know, and those guys are great, and I want to bring it. Let's talk to this guy. Right. So that alone was awesome, and you know, it was great for me to see Coach Carlisle go from an assistant, the associate head at Tennessee, and I saw a guy I worked for 2 years, and I saw him go to USC, and when he became his own head guy, I just saw a guy just unbelievably, like, his mindset, his charisma, everything changed, because now he was the lead, and he got to be creative in things he did and his coaching style, and he could be totally authentically how he wanted to run the program.
Right.
And that was really cool, because I remember talking to the old guys back at Tennessee, you know, like year 1, year 2, and they're all like, you know, how's old Coach Carlisle doing? Is he still doing the da-da-da? And I'm like, no, we're doing this now, and we're doing this now, and we're doing this now. And they're like, whoa. And they start putting out their pen and paper and start writing notes. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean, how's he doing this speed program? I'm like, he's doing it this way. And they're like, whoa, this is different. I'm like, I know, it's different. And this is it's been really good.
Right.
And you know, just to see that, and then obviously those 3 years with Coach Carlisle were unbelievable. Just some of the stuff, especially on the movement side, outside the weight room, and stuff he did at a level, and the heart and passion he put into that side was unbelievable. And then you know, the Johnny Longs, and getting coached by Tommy Moffitt, and you know, Tommy coached me very hard in the weight room, and there was a lot of lessons, I think, on those daily training plans that just I learned about strength training, and I learned about coaching from him on how he coached me.
Right.
And I would say my first role at a place like USC was I think I was probably leaning a little bit on a lot of how Tommy coached me on how I coached.
Sure.
How I coach players, and you know, that was his impact on me as a mentor. Was he was my mentor, specifically my strength coach, and some of the things he did with me as a shot putter was I mean, it was, I look back now going, how in the world did we do that? But we did.
Borderline abusive.
yeah, and you know what?
Let's play it, Tommy.
He goes around now, if he ever speaks, which I'm calling him out here. He, you know, to get Tommy Moffitt to speak at a kind of clinic is like, you know, turning time pretty much the other way. It's but when he does speak, he will not hold back and say that I was his guinea pig.
Right.
And the things that he did with me was pretty much like, let's do this, and let's do it with Aaron, and if it gets us really strong, then we'll look at it and maybe bring it over to the football program.
Well, you know, the mentors, I mean, it's such an important role, and I know that you gave back, you know, as a head strength coach as well, pouring into your staff members and GAs, and I think that's an important part of the process as well. I think, you know, one of the things that we can both agree on, and you even said it, you know, when you took the Idaho job, is that you're going to make all the mistakes as a head strength coach. It doesn't matter what your pedigree is. It doesn't matter how many different jobs you've had. When you sit in that chair, you're going to make lots of mistakes. So what maybe is the biggest mistake that you've made, and kind of how you learn from it?
You know, I think probably the biggest mistake was that first year at Idaho, going there in 2004. And, you know, I just thought, because I had, I guess you call it the blueprint from a place like you know, I think Coach Carlisle brought the blueprint from Tennessee. He modified it.
Sure.
He took out many minutes out of the weight room and added it to the pre-lifting, the warm-up, the speed, the agility, the jumping. And, I mean, we probably cut the lift program, I'm going to say, almost in half of what we were doing at Tennessee. And I'm sitting here as a strength coach and a shot putter that loved to lift weights. I'm going, no, don't do this. Like, we got to lift. And Carlisle's like, no, we got to move. We got to get out here and learn to run. We got to change direction. And I'm an old history teacher, and I'm going to teach these players how to move. And by lesson, we're going to become great movers. And what I saw was the weight room part didn't skip a beat. I mean, we pulled half the volume out of that thing. We cut exercises out. We cut sets from 5 down to 3. We cut reps down, 8s down to 5s, and to save time because we knew we were eating it in the front end. And
Right.
And just seeing how much he adapted some new stuff. So here I was. Now I had a Tennessee lift blueprint. I had Coach Carlisle's speed plyo blueprint that we did at SC. So now I kind of, by the time I going in our 4th year at SC, I go to Idaho. Well, we'd had 4 years of building that program, going on 4 years. So where it was at in year 4 was highly more sophisticated than it was in year 1.
By the way, you didn't have the same athletes. No offense to Idaho. But.
Hey man, I wasn't going to bring that up. So I'll let you do that. So anyway, I just take the blueprint. Boom, just bring it right up there. Put the Power 5.1 back then in the program, and put in the new maxes and the new names, and just spit it out. And here I was, different weight room setup. Actually had a better weight room setup at Idaho than I had at SC at the time. Different athlete. You just mentioned weather. The weather was a big difference. Now we had to do all this speed plyo stuff. We had to find a place to do it because in Southern California, you just go outside year round. It rains like once a year here if you're lucky. Mm-hmm. So, just all those things. And next thing I know, I had, by the time I was in the summer training, I mean, the trainer Barry was just knocking on my door like, you know how many guys we got like that can't do the program because the hamstring pulls right now, and all these things, and we started looking at the injury report, and guys were just really banged up and sore and can't do this because of this hamstring and the left side on this guy and the right side on this guy and the tight back on this guy. And all of a sudden you're like, man, what are we doing here? So that was a big thing I had to learn is you can't just take a program that had manifested for 3.5, 4 years and just take that and just throw it right onto a new program.
Right.
Just because it won, a national championship and all these things it did, it's maybe not the best thing for a new team at a place like Idaho. But the thing is you walk into a place like Idaho, you just hire a former USC linebackers coach who's now the head coach. Well, he's coming in saying, we're going to bring the SC defense to this same type philosophy. And the players are fired up. They just watched SC for 3 years.
Right.
And then, I just hired the strength coach. So we're going to bring the strength program from USC. And now the players are like, oh, wait, this is awesome. These guys that are killing it that we've been watching late night on Saturday nights, we're going to have. So it was a great concept.
Right.
But it just didn't work that way. So
I hear you. And again, I think that's so important, and that's one of the reasons why I asked the questions because, if you can avoid some of the mistakes that others have made in front of you, and avoid those potholes. I mean, you got a better trajectory to success, in my opinion. You talked about being fired, and you and I both have been fired. You've been fired. How do you best, what advice would you give a young strength coach who, when you were at USC or Idaho, early on, the thought never even crossed your mind that you could potentially be fired. That was with me as well. Yeah. What advice would you have for a young strength coach as far as how to best prepare themselves for when that happens? Not if, but when that happens.
Yeah, I agree. I think I agree with you so much that it's hard. I mean, it's almost like you don't respect the process of that until it happens.
Yep.
And I remember, I started off right out of the gun, with some great opportunities at Tennessee and USC, and it pushed me right into places like Idaho and Ole Miss because of the success I'd had. And I was the same way. It wasn't for me. It wasn't. Will I ever get fired? It was more like, well, as soon as I get fired, I'll just get rehired.
Right.
And that was probably the biggest thing that I can give a young strength coach is there's not other football staffs having staff meetings right now waiting for you to get fired so they can pick you up.
Right. That's true.
They're not saying, hey, let's find out when his contract ends because we're going to get him as a free agent. You know, and I was guilty going, man, SC, Tennessee, championships. If I get fired, I mean, when I got fired on this, I was just sitting there, okay, let me just set my phone here.
Right.
Let's sit here and let's who's going to call.
It's going to ring off the hook.
Yeah, and you know what? You find out it's crickets. And you find out you're calling people going, hey, can you call so-and-so? Because I haven't heard from them yet. And they're like, what do you mean? They got an opening and they haven't called me. And you're like, they're like, yeah, well, it doesn't work that way, buddy.
Yeah, right.
You know, these are guys that have been fired before, or even football coaches I was talking to. And you start learning that once you become fired too, people don't start answering your calls.
You find out who your friends are for sure.
Yeah, you find out who your friends are. You know, you find out you're trying to call these coaches or get maybe call for you or maybe send a letter of recommendation. And man, it's like crickets. They don't answer the call. They don't call you back. And all of a sudden you're just like, whoa, like I was not prepared for this. And I didn't see it shaking down this way. And I almost compare it to people that go through cancer. And you see people, you know, you see commercials about cancer. Then all of a sudden, you get a friend or a family member that goes through it, and it kind of hits you, but it's still, you don't have the respect for it. How devastating it is to, you know, you could die, or you could, you know, go into extreme, you know, time of your life. And you always hear about the people that survive cancer and they come out, and there's always some people that go, you know what? My passion now is to go help other people that maybe are going through cancer at that time, or go speak about the awareness of this and all these things, because you don't do those things until you experience it. And I think for anything, I mean, for the young coaches, it's like I said, it's real, and the higher level you get, the more cutthroat it is, obviously, and I would say that probably more back then. Nowadays, it's almost even, you know, at maybe not even the higher level jobs. I mean, people are getting rolled over with new strength staffs and stuff, with football staffs. I don't think no one's safe anymore. So
I agree with you. I think the biggest thing, I think you would agree with me, is that, you know, you got to be smart with your money. You know, because you're not always going to have that contract to fall back on, you know. And the second thing is that you have to talk about it as a family, you know, because it can be a stressful time on a family, you know. And so the more you talk about it on the front end, the better off you are. Yeah. The you know, with the Sorinex, and even it took you just, you know, watching you and you, we've talked about this quite a bit, you know, with especially with me writing the book and things like that about being an entrepreneur and kind of building out that side of you. You've done that. You've kind of found your own, you know, brand, you know, per se through Sorinex. I mean, you're doing pen and paper straight that, you know, you found your brand of mixing kind of business and strength and conditioning. Talk about the importance of having a personal brand as a strength coach. Because back, you know, I mean, I told a story, you know, in my book about how I used to look at like Mike Boyle as one of the biggest sellouts there were, but when I actually learned what he's done and how, and you know, I've learned to appreciate and respect, because he just found a way to monetize his learning experience. And so how do you balance not being self-promoting, you know, but at the same time have a personal brand in this business?
That's a good question. I think I'm still kind of learning that now. I mean, I think I came definitely to the game late. I definitely like the social media things and stuff like that is something I probably just really jumped on board with about a year ago. So I'm kind of playing catch up. Obviously, those years at a place like a USC and those things, those 4 years I was there, I really wasn't doing anything, you know, to brand myself, any kind of social media, any kind of. I was one of those guys that I kept things close knit in the house that we were in with the strength staff. I know Tim Karen was one of my assistants. He was doing a lot of stuff with some social media, some his own page and this and that. And at the time, I was kind of looking at him like, I wasn't saying he's wasting his time, but I just was like, I'm just not into that and things like that. So I wish I would have picked that up a while back. But it's definitely it's definitely important. Like as you are a strength coach, becoming a strength coach, to start figuring out, what sets you aside and how can you display that and develop that, I guess, and somewhat promote yourself in a way where, it's something that's unique to you. And so now I'm trying to discover that for me and how I can impact. And my biggest thing was this past year was I was kind of in the give back mode. I was so much given to me with great mentors, and I mean the experiences and the coaches that I've been around and things I took for them. I have so much of that 16 years worth that I'm ready to share now, and I'm ready to give back to the profession and hopefully help young coaches understand about, like we talked about, getting fired and the reality of the job and things like that. So I developed, I guess my first one was the pen and paper strength app, which kind of was started, I think, years ago on how I was doing things, meaning writing stuff down on a piece of paper. And I kind of live day to day like that, even as a strength coach. I'd write every day like a to-do list, and then I'd always write out my training plan that I do during lunchtime or whatever it was, and I'd always write it out because I felt when you put it on a piece of paper and it's there, it holds you more accountable to doing it. So those are things. I mean, I've got assistant strength coaches that work with me at places like Idaho, Ole Miss, Tennessee, USC. Even USC as an assistant back, they're sending me pictures right now of training programs I wrote on a piece of paper that we did as a staff. And going, hey, I thought you'd like to see this. And it kind of hit me like, wow, I didn't even realize how much I was writing on a piece of paper years ago.
Right.
So for me, I think around February, it kind of manifested to, well, I could take a lot of these great quotes, a lot of these great programs, a lot of these great one-liners that I took from coaches, a lot of these great experiences, and maybe as a way I could share these things with coaches, with people that run performance centers, with people that are getting in the business, high school coaches, even athletes, and kind of created an Instagram account and started rolling with it, and it's been really fun. It's been something that takes a small part of my day, I don't know, just minutes probably, but it keeps me in a way that I can outreach into the strength profession and pull from them and get information, and it allows me to also take the information and share it. Yeah. So for me, it's a give back opportunity in a really quick way to just write something down and let everybody see it.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I know a lot of people appreciate it, and so do I. And I think you even take submissions from people. So I think, if you're listening and you have something that's great, send it to Aaron. Yeah. For him to review. But what do you think you've learned? Even a short time here with play now. Going in and out of different programs. I'm already a better strength coach. Getting a chance to go see other people, how they coach, how they interact. How their setup is, how the weight room's set up. I'm already a better strength coach. You've been doing it longer than I have. Yeah. What have you learned about yourself by going around to these different programs and being able to spend a day with coaches?
It's been unbelievable for me. I think I said it at Summer Strong in May. I don't know if this is exact, but I told them, I said, I'm 10 times the strength coach right now than I was a year ago. And it's by going around and seeing how other people do things, and that's been really fun. I love when I can email a coach, 2 to 3 weeks out, and let them know I'm going to be in town, I'd like to visit, and I might say, hey, how does Wednesday work? And they're like, great. And they said, we have training at 6, 8, and after that, we're pretty much free to do whatever. So first thing I do is I'm always waiting at the door before 6 as they get there.
It's awesome.
And greet them as a strength coach, because that's how I am. I'm an early place to get there. My kids can't believe how I get them there like 15 minutes before practice starts, and we're the only ones standing around. They're like, Dad, the coach ain't even here yet. I'm like, I know. I said, but you got to learn to be this way.
Right.
You got to learn to be ahead of people. And I love to go in, and they're like, I thought you was coming around 10. I'm like, yeah, we'll talk about 10, but I want to see you guys train. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, awesome, man. I didn't know you'd be here this early. And to go in and just watch them as a staff. I like to watch how they start setting up. I like to see maybe sometimes you walk in, they've got it already set up because they did it before they left the night before.
Yep.
Things like that. And I like to see the communication between 35, 45 minutes out before the lift starts. What's going on? Are people just sitting in their office drinking coffee, checking social media? Or are they maybe getting together, having a team huddle, getting things ready to roll? I mean, you see all spectrums. And you see it, I mean, again, you're going to compare it probably to how they run it versus how you used to run things. So you're going to see differences. And to see some things, and, you know, I've left places going, holy cow, that was awesome. Like, how much to get to sit in a staff meeting and see how they organize that, and how, I mean, first thing I learned right away was I was doing way too much as a head strength coach.
Mm-hmm.
I was not allowing my assistants, even the interns, I needed to give them a bigger opportunity in the program. And I thought at the time that I was. But after going and seeing some programs and seeing how they're really integrating the staff with some post-lift information, maybe on sleep, nutrition, whatever it was, and how that was kind of, they gave them that power, that title to let them do those things in front of the team.
Right.
And those are the things that, again, when I was assistant, I didn't get to do those things under Carlisle. So when I got to go be a first head guy, you know, getting up and speaking to the team and all those things was so new to me. And I had to get better at immediately. I was losing sleep because I didn't know how to speak in front of the team good yet.
Right.
So seeing staffs use their assistants and things in those opportunities and how it's developed them, that's the first thing I took away was, you know, wow, there's where I really dropped the ball. I could have done a way better job of allowing the staff. And something else that I try to tell coaches, and I think you've mentioned this probably in your book, is, you know, talking about time with your family and obviously preparing for that time when you don't have a job maybe, and have some funds saved up and stuff like that. So, you know, the way I look at it now is like, you know, there's so many strength coaches that they hire their assistants. Hey, I hired my guys. These are my guys. I got to hire them. Well, I think as a head strength coach, you have to maybe take some time. Take a Friday off. Let them run it.
Right.
Go spend a weekend with your family. Go get away on a Friday. Hey, where's Coach? You know what? He went on a 3-day weekend with his family. The players will probably be like, he needs to.
Right.
You know? But as a strength coach back then, you didn't even think about that.
Yep.
You know, you wouldn't miss a Friday for nothing. But if you hired the right people and you trust in the process, like, why wouldn't you give them your 4 assistants and a GA or an intern? Like, hey guys, Thursday is my last day. I'll see you guys Monday. You guys got the show tomorrow. Make sure it's run right. Trust in the process and get out, spend some time and go do something when you have a free weekend off from the duties as a football strength coach. And those are some things that I wish I would have done a better job at. And I would say that's something, if strength coaches are out there, there's, you know, you always go, well, I don't have time to do that this year, but I'll work out time to do that next year.
Right.
You won't do it.
That's right.
You have to start. You have to start making, like, hey, maybe once a semester, I take a 3-day weekend for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I let my staff run that show on Fridays. And I look back as a young assistant. My first year, Coach Carlisle was going through chemo and cancer. And he left Tennessee to come to SC. Well, his treatments were back in, I think they were back in Knoxville.
Oh, wow.
So every other Friday in the first winter program, I ran the show on Fridays. And I was like,
It's instrumental.
I was just a GA. I'm the head strength coach every other Friday at USC.
Right.
You talking about like growing up really fast and figuring out like, wow, I don't have control of that very well, or wow, that went well, and talking about how you have to learn quickly to communicate with the staff and things like that. You know, I was thrown right in the fire as a young strength coach, but it made me better. So I think take away, obviously, hopefully not a sickness or a disease or anything like that. I think as a strength coach, you gotta let you guys do that sometimes.
Well, that's a great point. That actually, to your point, it happened naturally with me, but not being living separate from my family in Michigan. That there was times that I was forced to go home for various different things. And my guys took over and really put them in a good spot to be able to handle the transition when I left, to where both of them got elevated as co-head strength coaches. So I agree with that 100%. I think that's very, very important. And a lot of that becomes, is a pride thing on your part. You think as a head strength coach, everything's going to fall apart if you're not there. And then all of a sudden you don't want to come back and feel like, oh yeah, it was fine. But the reality is that's if you're doing a good job of developing your people, then it should be fine. You're 100% right on that. Let's talk a little training here. Just watching seeing your programs through the years, watching some of the things on Pen and Paper Strength app and things. I mean, obviously, I think you really focus on the lower body in your program. I see a big difference in lower body training versus even upper body training. From an athletic perspective, give me. You're a 4-day-a-week guy or a 3-day-a-week guy with the team?
We were a 4-day.
Okay, so 2 lower bodies essentially.
Yeah, we would usually lower body. We kind of progressed to lower body on Mondays and Thursdays.
Okay.
And then Tuesday, Friday, more of an upper body. We started splitting.
Big squat Thursdays.
Body all 4 days. Some things like that. I think things kind of developed as we went. But yeah, I started. It is again learning opportunity with Noel Durfee when I was at Ole Miss, and we started learning the program. Of course, Noel started asking questions, and when Noel started asking questions, it started making me think. So, again, it was a great opportunity to work with Noel because he made me better by asking questions, and we started really analyzing like, well, why would we do that? And then all of a sudden, we're like, wouldn't it make more sense to maybe put the speed day outside, the plyo stuff, come in, hit some Olympic lifting, and attack the legs, and then we don't do that again until Thursday, and then on Tuesday, Wednesday, we hit upper body and rest, and we like, that kind of makes good sense. So I think probably around 2007, I formatted or kind of grew over to the lower body all in one day, Mondays and Thursdays.
So on that typical lower body session, give me a breakdown as to what that would be and kind of how you arrived at that.
We kind of designated our Monday as a day we're going to power clean maybe somewhat on our heavier side. So we would come in and do usually after we've been outside doing maybe linear speed, some plyometric, some core training, things like that. We would come in, highly lubed up. I mean, we were 40 minutes outside moving around. Guys were, already sweating really good. We go right to the platform, start our barbell warmup. Usually our typical exercise was something out of the hang or something really quick. So it'd be maybe push jerk, split jerk, or maybe a hang snatch. Mm-hmm. And then we'd follow it with our power clean day. So we'd clean off the floor. That'd be our typical, probably our more like a 5-set type day. That'd be, typically around 5 sets because that was our big lift that day. So power clean would follow up with some form of double leg support, squatting or pushing program. So it might be trap bar deadlift or a front squat type movement. then we'd follow by a hamstring. So it was 2 Olympic movements, or 2 versions of the Olympic movements, some form of double leg support push, squat, and followed by a hamstring. Hamstring would be like an RDL, glute ham raise, things like that. We'd followed up some finishing movements on things like a manual neck type stuff. But between the outside being about 40 minutes and the inside being about an hour in the weight room, it was about an hour, 40 minutes, pretty much straight through. The other day, we'd be very similar. The Thursday would be very similar. We'd do more of a lateral speed day, a lot of change of direction, some form of plyo, some form of core. And then come in, again, 2 Olympic type movements. So if we did a snatch on Monday, then that day would be some form of maybe a jerk, something quick. And then that day would be maybe a hang clean versus something off the floor like a power clean. So we do some form of clean there. And then we do some form of single leg movement. Would that be multiple sets, 4 and 5 sets, rear foot elevated split squat, just regular barbell split squat. Some days even lunges, things like that, followed by a hamstring, followed by some form of neck and things like that. So those 2 days mirrored each other. We just kind of subbed in some different exercises, but it's still, the template was pretty much the same.
Squat was your Thursday as well? Big squat day?
Yeah, but we kind of went over to doing a little bit more on the single leg. We really pushed that rear foot elevated barbell single leg squat pretty well on that day.
Mm. So when you're in your single leg training, you would go RFEs, you'd go single leg squats, you'd go lunges, and step up. What was there any other exercises that you found to be real beneficial?
I think those 4 you named was pretty much our rotating basis on those. We use those a lot. Probably just step up the least, probably out of those 4. But yeah, those 4 rear foot elevated lunges, sometimes front foot elevated split squats. It just depended on what we're doing.
Right. Well, that's good, man. Well, I know it's early out there, and we've been going for a while. I want to finish it off here with some resources. What's the best piece of coaching advice you ever received?
Actually, you know what? I put that yesterday on the pen and paper strength app. Was I remember when Mickey talked to they just won obviously the national title at Florida, and he talked at the CSCCA the following year. And I remember something that stuck out, and I always took this back, and we talked about it all the time as a staff, and it was you're going to be good at what you emphasize, and you're going to get what you tolerate. And we talked about like this. That phrase pretty much is every day in your face as a coach. That alone, you're going to be good at what you emphasize. And I think Mickey talked about like, if you haven't practiced the red zone offense, meaning the plays you call when you're in the red zone, if you haven't practiced that and you get in the game and now you're inside the 20 and now you need some plays for that type, if you haven't practiced red zone offense, he goes, guess what? In the game, you're not going to be good at red zone offense. You got to, but if you emphasize certain situations in the red zone and practice those plays, you're going to emphasize those, you're going to become good at it.
Absolutely.
And it was totally made sense. So we talked about it all the time as a staff. What do we want to be good at? And we talked about, we want to be, our program, we want to be good at integrity, our guys showing up on time. Okay, well, we got to emphasize it. Okay, we want to be good at guys showing up ready. Their shoes are tied. They're wearing the right gear. Well, we got to emphasize it. So then on the flip side, you get what you tolerate. Right. So it's like, again, it goes way back. Like, well, if you tolerate guys to show up late, they show up late. If you tolerate guys to not start behind the line, they're not going to start behind the line. This is, I think that's the everyday, to me, what sums up coaching is about in that one phrase.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more.
And it's like, there it is. So
I think one of my favorites along those lines is it's if you were to walk outside and look inside your weight room, and through a plain glass window, what's it speak to you? That was something that I always in that same vein.
Yeah.
What about
yesterday, real quick? One of the coaches commented, and it's so true. He said, "Are you coaching them to do it that way, or are you letting them do it that way?" And that's another way. It's pretty much the same thing, maybe put in a different phrase, but it's true. I mean, you see a guy doing an exercise, and you walk up, and if he's totally doing it wrong, and I mean, basically, like you have to ask yourself, well, am I coaching him to do it wrong? And then you go, well, no, so I'm letting him do it wrong.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing as a coach, you got to look in the mirror, and if you're allowing those things to go on day in, day out in your program, it's your fault.
That's a great one. What about a book, app, and website recommendation?
I think a book that really probably put me at a level of just was The 4 Pillars of a Man's Heart by Sue Weber. That one I've read actually several times. It's a great book, especially someone getting married, anyone starting a family with children. But it really helped me develop my coaching philosophy, which I call the 4 Pillars of Coaching, by reading that book several times and going through some of the trials and tribulations of coaching, of getting fired and things, and you get time to reflect. I think in 2008 was allowed me the time to really develop my coaching philosophy that I kind of put as an image with 4 pillars.
What are the 4 pillars of coaching?
For me, it was number 1 was faith. And I spoke on this a little bit. I've spoken on it several times, but to me, I look back at when I was coached by a guy like Tommy Moffitt, and it's 1997. It's early March. The NCAA championships on Friday night on the shot put, and Tuesday afternoon, I'm squatting 600 pounds for a single, and my max is around 615. So I'm high level 90% percentile for a single, less than around 72 hours before I have the biggest competition of my life.
Right.
Well, I didn't blink an eye because I had total faith in Tommy Moffitt. And I didn't even hesitate. I didn't question anything because I developed a relationship with him as my coach and having faith in him.
Sure.
So I felt faith was the number 1 pillar for me is I want my athletes when I coach to have faith in me, my staff, and the program. And how do I develop that? Well, I think as a staff, we have to come to work every day and have faith in our program that we put on to the athletes.
Right.
So to get faith in your program, you have to display faith. So it's a two-way street. Number 2 was passion. I think doing anything in life, you do it with passion. You set yourself aside. I think to show that you love what you do. When you start loving to do things, I think you spoke on it, Center Strong. Love what you spend time on.
Yep.
And to me, you gotta have passion, especially as a strength coach. And it's got to be real. Can't be phony. And the players or athletes will sniff that out right away. They know if you love being a strength coach or not. They know that.
Mm-hmm.
The third one is mentor. I think the opportunity to mentor your athletes exists all day, and whether you take advantage of it is up to you. I wanted my athletes to look to me as a mentor, but the only way I could get that is go try to be their mentor.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's another two-way street example. And nowadays, with social media, text messaging, emailing, obviously having performance meetings, going over things outside of the weight room, the ability to mentor, the ability to put your arm around a player, have breakfast with him, talk to him about goals, about his family, seeing him as you're walking down the hall, going to the restroom, stopping and talking to him, mentoring him in those situations, walking after practice. I mean, the opportunity to mentor a player, it exists 24/7. You just have to go after it.
Agreed.
And then the last one is integrity, which I feel is basically what your rules and your policies are in your program. And I think the integrity of your program, of how you run that day to day, has to be at a high level. So when I really thought of this pillar, I basically said, what are my rules and policies of my weight room or my strength program or my staff, and how we conduct our business. So, I felt if you establish how we're going to squat with a freshman when he walks in the summer of his freshman year, the integrity of your program is making sure he squats that way year 2, year 3, and year 4.
Right.
If you establish with your program, your athletes, what being on time is, then your integrity of your program must be consistent year 2, year 3, and year 4, even when he's a star player as a senior.
Sure.
So those things, I felt, those 4 areas, if done well and those 4 areas have balance, you're going to be successful as a coach and as a staff.
No, that's great. I'm glad you shared that. Quickly, an app and a website.
As far as the app, I really don't rely.
Strength app.
Yeah, there you go.
Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram. And again, going back to that, my goal when I made that was I want to be able to share my biggest goal on the pen and paper strength app is I want to constantly promote lifting and strength training, and hope it doesn't become a lost art.
Right.
That's my biggest goal. I see, again, you go around, you watch programs, and you see some programs that are still lifting a lot of weights, but still integrating some great things. You see some programs now that are not lifting a lot of weights and doing a lot of other stuff.
Right.
And, I came from a background as a thrower. We lifted weights. We had a 5-day-a-week off season. We had a 4-day-a-week in season. I mean, the stuff we went through was rigorous, but I just want to make sure I'm promoting with that app, the Instagram account, basically that I just don't want, I don't want other things to take over. You're a strength conditioning coach. The first word is strength.
Right.
Put your time into training guys in the weight room and make sure you don't lose that part of it.
No, I agree, man. Well, brother, this has been fun, man. It's been a long time coming for sure, but definitely well worth it, and tons of great. I mean, I've 3 or 4 pages of notes here as we've been going through, and it's obvious your passion that you have as a coach. It's obvious the passion you have for your family, and the things that you pour into and give back, and it's just it's the way it should be done, man. So I appreciate you coming on the show.
All right, take care. Thanks, Ron.
That's it for this episode of Iron Game Chalk Talk. Thanks to this week's guest as well as our sponsors for bringing this episode to you for free. Make sure to check out ronmckeefery.com, where you can join our mailing list, find the show notes, including all the links and resources mentioned, and information about Coach McKeefery's other products. While you are there, please join Coach McKeefery in the comments section thanking our guest for sharing. If you haven't subscribed to Iron Game Chalk Talk on YouTube or iTunes yet, make sure to do so. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome. Coach McKeefery can be found on Twitter at @RMcKeefery, on Facebook and YouTube at /Ron.McKeefery. That's it for this week. Be sure to check back next week for another great episode of Iron Game Chalk Talk.